Well, good morning, everybody. Time to have a cup of coffee. Everybody's up early this morning because the grandson's stayed over. So I'm getting a late start because I've been playing with him, but we're all up. So everybody's up and everybody's going. Dogs are going crazy. Grandson's running around. Super fun. Having a good morning. So today, here's what I want to talk about today. We did this thing yesterday. We talked all about the kind of the dollars and cents and the difference, like the physical difference, okay? Not the value difference. You are responsible for placing value on whatever you place value on. That's not anybody but you. I think people get that. Maybe we should just do a video about value in particular. But um, so yesterday was, a more expensive guitar. All cheap guitars have to make these compromises, right? That you don't have to make on more expensive guitars because just the physical limits of and economic limits of getting something done. So then the next thing, even though people I know you don't want to hear that because what happens is it somehow devalues what you do, in your own mind. I think that's what happens. The next part of this argument that we saw in the comments to that video yesterday was somebody actually said, and I love the comment, it makes sense. You're forgetting about the brand itself. You're paying for just the brand. And we hear this a lot. We hear you're just paying for a name on the peg head. I don't pay for a name on the peg head. There's some sort of superiority built into that. I don't know why. But in order to understand what a brand is, we need to define it. We need to look at what's in it. And here's the awful truth for those of you that make fun of people or say negative things about people who are paying for a brand. You're doing it too. You're doing it too. Okay? So, what is a brand? Well, obviously, we're going to be like, yeah, it's the Gibson logo. It's the Harley Benton logo. It's the Fender logo. It's the Ibanez logo. That's the brand. No. The brand's not advertising. It's not the logo. It's not the celebrity endorsements. It is an accumulation. Okay. Brand recognition is an accumulation of thousands of decisions over many years. Okay. That get, every guitar, every customer service touch, every warranty claim, every, innovation or change or lack thereof, every failure, every success, everything that contributes to what you think of that guitar. And this is the thing, every brand could look different to other people, to every person. But that brand is an accumulation of all of that knowledge, all of that time, all of that experience for millions of people, in the case of Gibson and Fender, for each product, for each overall brand family. When you buy a guitar of a certain brand, so let's talk about Gibson or Fender or anything big. So, Ford, Chevy, doesn't matter. Anything of the larger brands in each area of life. They reduce risk. When you buy from a bigger brand, it reduces risk. When somebody buys a Gibson or a Fender or a Chevy or a Ford, right? They don't know that guitar, right? They don't know that particular guitar till they get it in their hands, but they know the brand. They know Gibson, they know Fender. Overall, they know what they're getting. Even if they're skeptical of quality control, etc., based on that reputation and the previous experiences, they know what they're getting. When you buy a Chevy truck, you know what you're getting. When you buy a Ford, you know what you're getting. When you buy, when you buy a small brand, you might not have that risk reduction. So, for example, now we're going to get into resale value later, but this is, people say, well, you're just buying the brand on the peg head. But this is the same reason you don't buy a small brand that you've never heard of. Like a boutique builder, for example, you're a little risky. It's a little risky. So what do? You wait. You find out from other people how long that brand's been in business. How do they service their customers? What do other customers say about the quality of their product, et cetera, et cetera? That brand gains value. It didn't have value to you at first because you didn't know who Texas Toast Guitars were. You didn't know who Sir was. You didn't know who, any of these other smaller brands were. And then all of a sudden, they start to gain. Got something in my mouth somehow. They got to gain value in your mind, and that value, that confidence in that brand has monetary. It actually has monetary value because it affects your buying decision. Now let's talk about the invisible stuff we don't see in a guitar. Engineering, prototype costs, testing, failed ideas. Nobody sees the failed ideas. Nobody sees how many pickups we throw away. Nobody sees how many bodies you cut up and burn in a backyard fire that never made it. Nobody sees the employees. Nobody ever pays your CAD bill. I can tell you all the amount of money I spend on software every year that you never see. All the tooling, all those costs disappear into the brand, right? We don't see that stuff in a guitar, but it's all behind there. It's all making things happen. Manufacturing knowledge. Just because a company has a CNC machine doesn't mean that they're good at using it. You still, it's garbage in, garbage out. It's just a computer. So garbage in, garbage out. If bad information goes in, a bad product comes out, period. So that means that one company that has a CNC machine may not be as good at making a guitar as another company that has a CNC machine. Experience, process, training, knowledge over time, accumulated over time, that knowledge becomes part of the brand. All of that stuff, that actually it ends up being that's intellectual property, which also has financial value. All the quality control stuff. When we think about the person has to, that looks at it, they reject parts. Those parts get thrown away. Rejected necks, rejected bodies, rejected tops. All that stuff costs money. Inexpensive instruments, they don't usually reject as much. They have a much wider, we talked about that. They have a much wider tolerance for stuff. And it's harder to service. Like quality control is harder to service. Warranty. This is something I don't think people think about. Okay. I know you don't think about this. On the consumer side, you view warranty as a thing that you hope you don't have to use. Okay. If something's wrong with the guitar, you don't want to have something wrong with the guitar, but you hope that there's a warranty because if there is, then you get to be made whole on the deal, whether it's a refund, a discount, a repair, whatever it is. From the brand side of it, from the manufacturer side of it, I don't think you really think about this, but every product that you ever sell. So we sell, 300 pickups a month. Gibson makes 500-600 guitars a day. Every guitar sold, every product sold becomes a future liability for the company. It becomes its profit, but it can easily, if there's an issue, become a cost. Because somebody has to handle that if it becomes a problem. They have to stock the replacement part. They have to pay for the shipping. We have to pay for shipping on warranty stuff. All those costs then become built into every instrument. And that's a cost you try to control, obviously. The dealer network is a whole nother thing. A lot of these folks say, well, the factory direct brands cut out the middleman, therefore they're cutting out cost. But they're also cutting out your friends who sell you guitars. They're cutting out the service. They're cutting out the ability to, try a product before you buy it, to gain actual knowledge about the instrument. Um, all that infrastructure, it costs money. Let's talk about marketing, because one of the things people will say about Gibson, they're like, well, their guitars wouldn't have to be so expensive if they didn't spend millions of dollars on NAMM. But nobody says that about Yamaha. Everybody loves Yamaha, but Yamaha spends more money than anybody in the trade shows. So what's the double standard there? Yamaha spends more money than anybody. Okay, so why you're just being dumb, to be honest with you. But marketing is important because marketing shows you a picture of the product, and I don't mean a photograph. I mean an overall picture. When somebody puts a lot of money into marketing, if it's done well, now it's not always done well, but if it's done well, you get a good idea not only of the product itself, how fancy or nice it is. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how that company views that product, how they look at how they want you to see that product, how they want you to value it, right? So a commoditized product typically has much simpler marketing, okay? Toilet paper, Kleenex. The commercials are, you understand what I'm saying. But there's no image to be had. There's no feeling. There's no draw emotionally to using toilet paper, or maybe there's for you. I won't judge. But I'm just saying, a guitar is an emotional purchase. And so the way that company wants you to view their product and wants you to value that as you take ownership of it and bring it into your life is reflected in the marketing. And I think that's something that people don't think about. They think about, dang, it costs this much, so now the guitar's more expensive. No, I want you to be a part of what we do. Like, this is, when our marketing is all based on pulling people into the community and just being a group of people that loves this stuff, and having a good experience with it, right? And most guitar companies want to do that. Most of the better ones. A lot of the cheaper guitar companies are just trying to put a product in your hands. They don't care how. So that's all those things create value, because then that speaks back to the legacy of the brand, and that speaks back to the history. That speaks back to all of that stuff. Consistency with a brand. So this can go up and down. Obviously, we've seen this with Fender. We've seen it with Gibson. We've seen it with a lot of companies where, as company ownership changes and stuff, they have bumps and this and that, and they got to fix it, obviously. But I would say that most of the companies now are on a process of trying to constantly improve this stuff. Anybody can make one of anything. Okay? Anybody can make one of anything. Can you make 100 of them and have them be good? Can you make 1,000 of them and have them be good? Can you make 10,000 and have them be good? Can you make 100,000 and have them be good? That all feel the same, that all look right, that all work right, that are right. That's consistency is expensive. It's expensive to buy the tools, to have the knowledge. It's all very, very expensive. All right, let's talk about resale value. Brand value, the name on the peghead, creates liquidity. Because if you have a Gibson, it's easy to sell. If you have a PRS, it's easy to sell. Some no-name brand, you're going to hang on to it for a while. You're not going to get as much money for it. So everybody's like, you're only buying the brand. Well, okay, sure. I am, actually. I'm glad I am, because you know what? There's value there. There's value there. The future resale of that guitar has real monetary value the day you purchase it, because the level of depreciation is much lower, and therefore that affects your personal cash flow. I mean, people don't think about that. That's you buy a cheap guitar and you just have to accept the fact that you're gonna take a hit on it. And maybe you're okay with that. That's totally fine. But that does not negate the value of the brand. Just because it has no value to you doesn't mean that it doesn't have a value to somebody else. And that person's not stupid. That person actually might be smarter than you because they're buying a guitar that actually retains some value, right? On the financial side. Now, you might not like it, so it doesn't matter. Like, you just might like the guitar that you like, no matter the value, so it doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? That's no big deal. We all value stuff different. Let's talk about time. Okay, because the biggest thing with cheap guitars is it was great after I did X, Y, and Z to make it good. Some people don't want to spend that time. Some people don't want to mess with it. Some people just want to pay. There are certain things that I like to pay for. There are certain things I like to do myself. I like to cut my own grass, but I don't like to fertilize it. So I pay somebody else to fertilize it, and I pay somebody else to pick up dog poop. But I love cutting my own grass because I like riding the mower around, right? So I incur the cost of the mower. I incur the cost of the fuel, right? And then I also assign the cost of those other chemicals and that labor to somebody else because I value that. I value a couple of things there. The time, and it's also something that I don't need to bother learning. I would rather spend my brain power doing something else. So I don't worry about what fertilizer to use, what time of year. I could probably do it, but I just don't. It's just not important to me. I'd rather have somebody else do it. Same thing with oil changes. I don't do my own oil changes anymore. I used to. I just don't. Value of time, right? I'd rather make a pickup than change my oil. Same thing with guitar stuff. Some folks, and I know that there are always people in the comments who speak negatively of the person who pays somebody else. I know folks who just drop their guitar off and have strings put on it. You know what? Dude, do it, man. If your time is more valuable than a set of strings, because of maybe what you do for a living, because of the importance of your family, your priorities in life are different, pay somebody to do it. And all those people that think you're stupid for doing it, they're stupid for judging you, to be honest with you. I mean, everybody should be able to do what they want. My point is with this is that when you buy, I bought a PRS a few weeks ago. I haven't touched it. I barely tuned it. Yeah, it was expensive. It was worth every penny because you know why? I haven't had to do anything. It's awesome, right? So when you buy a budget guitar, that's not always the case. Time is valuable, and that's different for everybody. Customer experience. Nobody likes to talk about packaging, but there is a feeling about buying something and having it come and it's got all the bits and bobs and swag and stuff that goes with it, and that's really cool. I don't want to pay for that. I just want the guitar. That's just adding cost to the guitar. Okay, then buy a cheap guitar. It's totally fine. Some people really like that, the unboxing experience, the sight and the smell and the feel and everything. That's, it's just different. Something that people don't think about because I don't know why. Is this because it's a male-dominated thing, but the emotional side of buying a guitar is not considered enough. I'll just come out and say it. The emotional side of a product is the reason I do it. I don't do it because I need a better guitar. I have nice guitars. I have cool guitars. I like the guitars I like. You do too. Whether you have a $200 guitar or a $20,000 guitar, it doesn't matter. You already have a guitar that you like that functions as a guitar. So there's no reason to get another guitar, right? You have a few, right? If you have 17 Harley Bentons, 3 Harley Bentons, or you have 17 custom shops, or you have 3 Mexican Fenders, it doesn't matter. You have a few guitars. Most of us have a few guitars. So we don't really have a reason to buy another guitar. Emotional. It's an emotional thing. And the reason I want a Martin is because I want a piece of history. The reason I want a Les Paul is because I want a piece of history. The reason I want a PRS is because I want to experience as many things as possible. I want to experience the real thing. I want to experience this guitar's been made for however many years and it's still here. It's super cool. The history, the identity, the feeling that comes with that, the smell of a Gibson when you open the case. Humans buy emotionally, and the people, it's just a tool. You're just a tool. That's not right. That's not true. Like, it's okay to admit that. Okay. And if you can't, and if you're having problems, and you got betterhelp.com/DylanTalksTone, find it in there. Find it in there. Now, this doesn't mean all of this that every brand is worth infinite amounts of money, because it's not. But it's worth money. Instead of just saying that you are just paying for the brand, say you're paying for the years and I always say this. When somebody says, geez, $150 is expensive for this handmade humbucker that you make. Well, you're not paying for, the hour and a half that it takes me to make the thing and all of the parts. You're paying for the 13 years that I have into this and the entire infrastructure that I have built to make this happen so that you can get it in a reasonable amount of time. When you buy a Gibson, you're not paying for this pile of parts. You're paying for the 100 years of all of it put together. Now, if that's not important to you, then buy a cheap guitar. It's totally fine. That's your choice. But to devalue that, or to attempt to devalue that for someone else, you can devalue it for yourself. That's totally fine. If you don't find value in it, I get it. Lots of people find value in different things. But if you are the person who gets in the comments and tries to devalue that for somebody else, you are a jerk. Stop doing it. Instead, ask that person, hey, I don't value that personally, but why do you? And they'll tell you a story and you will be friends. Instead of being the moron that gets in the comments and who's like, this person is an idiot for spending this much money because all he does is pay for the brand.